G'day guys, it's Sammy Gordon here from Australian Property Scout. I'm here for you always Wednesdays and your hot tip of the week. This week's hot tip, we're talking about maintenance, to fix or not to fix. Guys, this is a big one that I actually get questions about all the time. I just got off the phone with a client who inspired me pretty much to do this video because she came with some very valid points. So thanks, Sinead, for giving me a call about this. And it's a funny one because people, when they come to me about this, they're like, should we be paying for this maintenance? Should this thing be fixed or should we just leave it? A lot of the time, you may not have someone that you can bounce ideas off. So these are my 4 kind of key rules that I run with when it comes to maintenance and kind of how I make the decision on whether I do it or not. First one is it 100% necessary? So is it something that's broken that needs to be repaired? That actually has to be done? Or is it something you can maybe leave to the end of the lease? Something I've always done is if a lease maybe has 3 or 4 months left to run on it, I don't really like the tenant, I prefer to wait that thing out, let them move out or get it all lined up and get it ready to be rectified for when they move out. So it's always a big thing, but does it have to be fixed? Is it a safety hazard or anything like that? If it is, obviously get it done. But if it isn't, then don't worry about it. That's my opinion anyway, right? The other thing is is it in the benchmark in the area, should you be doing it? So one of the biggest things that I always think people get wrong early in the journey, I've done this too, is you've got a low price rental. You might be talking anything from $200, $300, maybe even $400 a week. With that rental, is it absolutely necessary to have, say, a dishwasher in a property like that? I would probably say anything less than 300, definitely not. That even as you get a little bit over that, when you start talking 600, 800, whatever a week, it goes without saying those sort of properties, more than likely in that market, are going to be expected to have something like that because of the price point. But if you weigh it up and you look at it and you're like, all right, I've got a $300 a week investment to pay someone else on the other side of the country to install a dishwasher cost me $900. Is it really worth putting in? Because it's also one of the things to break down. Are you really going to get that much extra rent or any rent extra at all for it? And that's one of the big things. And that actually leads me into number 2 is, are you actually going to get any more rent for it? If the question's no, I would seriously consider if it's worth doing or not. If it's something that has to be done and it's kind of a standard and a norm in an area, then yeah, you generally would do it because you're detracting your market if you're taking something like a dishwasher off the table. And in a very, very hot area, again, if you don't have say an AC in the house, then you might run into some issues around leasing it if you don't have that in there. I know where I grew up, it was weird. If you didn't have heating in a house, it would be very, very hard to rent it because it was quite cold during the winters where it was. So you've got to ask, what's your target market and what are they really wanting from that side as well? Is it necessary and will it actually get me more rent or will it hurt my rent not having that item? So question 1, is it necessary? Question 2, will I get any more rent for it? Question 3, how long will it take me to recoup my money? So the big one, this is the question I had today, was even around a roller door and putting it in. And it seems like a great idea at the time to put in an electric door remote, right? But in this property in particular, in this area, a lot of the time they just have carports that don't even have roller doors. So to have that in the beginning was a positive anyway, as it is. They're in front, just having the roller door. But then to put in an electric roller door, yes, you're providing an extra benefit to the tenant, but there's also maybe in 3 or 5 years, something you're going to need to replace, or it's going to break down at some point and cause you more headaches for something that you probably didn't even need in the property. Now, even if it was something like that, and yes, it attracts a premium, and let's say you get an extra $20 a week for it, how long is that going to take to recoup your loss, or your cost of installing it? I know this one for her was about $750. It's going to take you about 18 months to recoup that money. If you were to get $20 a week extra for it, which you maybe wouldn't do on that. So it's always something to weigh up. Same with the dishwasher. How much extra you're going to be able to rent, if anything, for that product. Things like sheds. Sheds can actually be quite a good little value add depending on the area where you put it. If you can knock it up yourself and get yourself an extra $50, $80 a week, which I've done before on properties of ours, and I've put them in and been able to install them for quite cheap at the time, just buying a kit for it, you can do really well out of it. But it's not always 100% the case. The 4th question, the one that I always ask, is a property manager, would you do it? A lot of the time people are completely fine and go, yeah, I think it's a great idea, blah, blah, blah. They're all happy to spend your money, right? But when you put it back onto them, it's go, well, would you put this on your property? It's quite often, and if you're working with someone that you think is an honest and has got a bit of integrity about him as well, you ask them that question, 9 times out of 10, they're going to come back to you with the truth. And if they don't actually think it's a viable thing or not a necessary thing, you're going to get that as well. So it's always a really good question to end up with. If you're still sitting on the fence a little bit, you're still a little bit unsure, the best question to ask at the end is, would you do this? Would you put this on your property as well? All right, guys, I hope that helps. My 4 little tips for around maintenance and making sure you're doing the right thing there and not over-capitalizing on your investment. Any other questions, guys, feel free to write in.